We're going to use percent proportions to solve these mixed percent problems. So for every percent proportion, it looks like this. Blank equals blank, where it's the part over the whole and the percent out of 100. So we're going to use that template for all of these. The 100 really goes on the bottom of the fraction. So that really goes here. Okay, so what percent of 56 is 58.24? Our keywords that we need are of and is. If you see a percent symbol, that's obviously a percent. Of is our keyword for the whole thing. Is the keyword for the part. It isn't always right after the keyword, the number that you need. It could come before it, so it's kind of different depending on your question, so be careful. But it is usually right next to it on either side. So like 56 here is in between of and is. So you gotta be careful with which keyword goes with it. So the is with the 58.24. So that's gonna be the part. So 58.24 is the part. And the 56 is with the of, so that's the whole thing. And what might be strange to you is that the part is actually bigger than the whole thing. That can happen. What that means is our percent will be bigger than 100%, which is totally fine. We're gonna put an X here as a placeholder because we're gonna solve for that missing percent. So to find X, we wanna get a scale factor that'll get us towards X. It'll be a little bit easier to actually go in this direction first though. I just know that 56 divided by 100 to get this scale factor will be a little bit easier to do versus the other way. Because if I try and do 100 divided by 56, not a great decimal. Not that I can't use that decimal, but just not the best option. 56 divided by 100 though is an easier decimal to work with. So that's times 0.56 going this direction. Hopefully you can see that okay. Let's try and write a little bit lower. So times 0.56. So then going the opposite direction would not be times 0.56. We have to do the opposite operation, which is divided by 0.56. So if we take 58.24 and we simply divide that by our scale factor going the other way, we'll get 104%, which does make sense because we said it should be more than 100%. So 104%. This is a percent, so the answer should have a percent symbol on it. A different way to do this one without a proportion is to simply just divide the left side. If it's a fraction, you want to make it a percent, just simply divide the top by the bottom, and you get your decimal, which then you can do times 100 to get your percent. So either way is totally fine. Obviously, it's the same answer. Let's try the next one. So percent proportion again, of course, and so we're going to start with blank equals blank. This is going to be part over whole and percent out of 100. So it says this is a percent, so we know where that goes, 199. It's got the percent symbol on it. Of what? So we don't know the of, so that's the whole thing. That's our unknown. Is 212.93. That's got to be the part. So we're going to find out a scale factor here. If you're not sure what direction to go in, I would just go towards X and then go the same way on the other part here. So I'm going to take the 212.93. I'm going to divide that by the 199. And it actually isn't that bad of a scale factor, 1.07. Do the same thing to the bottom. And that times 100 should be pretty obvious, I hope. Just going to be 107. So X would be 107. Again, that makes sense because the part is bigger than the whole thing because the percent's bigger than the whole, than out of 100. So that makes sense that this answer is smaller than this answer because the percent was more than 100%. Okay, moving on. So for this one here, what percent of 224 is that? So of and is here. Let me just get back to my marker. So part over whole, percent out of 100. We don't have the percent this time. Of is our keyword for the whole. Is the keyword for the part. Let's try that. We want to get to X. Again, I kind of just know that the scale factor from 100 is easier to work with. So I'm going to go this way, just a little bit of a, just because of my experience with this kind of stuff, because dividing by 100 is a nice decimal. So I just know that that's going to be easier to work with. And then going the other way, we're going to switch it up and use division. So we're going to divide by 2.24 because we're going backwards the other direction. So we're going to take the 129.92 and we're going to divide by that 2.24 to get our answer. And X is 58%. Don't forget your percent sign. We're looking for a percent. It better have a percent sign. All right, keep moving here. So this one we actually don't need to use a proportion for, but we can. This is finding the part. So we've got the percent and we've got the whole, because of is keyword for the whole thing. We don't have the part. So again, we could just do the decimal for 45% and then multiply it by 271, but we could also do it this way. So I'm going to do 271 divided by 100 to get our scale factor. I missed a 1 on there. It's going to be 2.71. Hopefully you knew that before you typed it in. And then we're just going to simply multiply that by 45, and that'll be our answer. So x is 121.95. This is not a percent. This is the part. It should not be a percent for this one. Okay, one more example here we're going to work on. Start the same way. Percent proportion, part over whole, percent out of 100. We have a percent this time. 5% of what? We don't know the whole thing. Is going to be our part, 3.05. Let's find a scale factor and get to x. So I'm going to try and go the same direction as pointing towards x here and see what our scale factor looks like. So if we do 3.05 divided by 5, that's not a bad scale factor to work with, times 0.61. Same thing to the bottom. That times 100, hopefully you can do in your head. Move that decimal twice, and you get your answer, 61. And those are some examples of how to find the part, the whole, or the percent